Time for another Dirt Daily. And today, once again, the Give-A-Way Gladiator is in the shop. I'm going to do a few more upgrades to it. In the past, I have already put a lift kit on this and 37-inch tall tires. It has a 3-inch Fabtech lift and 37-inch BFGs. However, Fabtech doesn't recommend that lift or that size tire with that lift. They actually say you should run a 35 with the 3-inch lift. However, they do offer tube fenders. These tube fenders will clear the 37s. So today's project, we're going to take the old body matched painted flares off and put these on. If you want to win this Jeep, go to the Cal 4-Wheel website and buy a raffle ticket. I can't guarantee that you will win, but I can guarantee that you won't win if you don't go to the Cal 4-Wheel website and buy a raffle ticket. Plus, all the funds from the raffle go to help Cal 4-Wheel fight to keep trails open in California so that one of you can win this thing, and next summer you can go four-wheeling in California. Maybe I'll go along. So let's get this thing done. Removing the old fender flares is much easier if you remove the front tires. I put it up on the lift. You could do this on jack stands. You could do it with tires on there. It's just you're kind of fighting to get to all of the attachment points. So you're going to start with 3 little 10mm bolts that you're going to want to back out that all line up inside the fender liner. After you remove the bolts, I believe there are 6 or 7 of these little plastic kind of Christmas tree tabs. They have like a round flat head. You're going to want a body tool to get underneath there and pop that out. And then they have kind of this Christmas tree style connector where it presses into a hole and kind of locks the fender liner into there. Most of these will come out easily. Don't be surprised if 1 or 2 of them break off like that one did. You can get these at your local auto parts store. They also reside up inside the top of the fender. There's some little cutouts and you can kind of see where they go. Try to save them if you can. If they break, you'll have to get some new ones, but if you can save them, you'll reuse some of those. Then this piece just kind of pulls out from behind like that. Next, you're going to reach up inside here and undo this little plug. This is the wiring harness for the turn signal and fender lights. You have to slide that little red slide back, and then you push this down, and that'll unplug there. There are some white clips. You can see them around the edge here. Those are going to be removed, and a lot of times those break. Don't worry about that because you're not going to reuse those. And there are also a fastener right here and another one right there that you're going to want to undo. Once you have all the hardware out, you're going to want to go through and start popping those little white fasteners. I've found that it seems to just be inevitable that these will break. If you can get behind the sheet metal to them, you can kind of squeeze them shut and they'll slide out the hole, but it's not always easy or possible to get behind them. It's funny how when you're on the trail, these little white tabs will just shatter if the tire rubs into the fender and if you're all twisted up, and it'll break the fender right off, or you rub it against a tree. When you're in the shop and you want to remove them, they want to fight you like they're made out of titanium. Then at a certain point, once you have most of those removed, you can just start pulling the whole fender and it will remove from the body. This may break more of those little white tabs, but don't worry because they're all going to be deleted. By the way, if you break these and you are trying to keep your stock fender flares, I think you can buy these from Quadratech. You can probably also buy them from the dealership. But Quadratech, the company that back east that has kind of a catalog of everything Jeep, has these that you can buy and order online. They're kind of a hard plastic, so when they break, they kind of shatter and go everywhere. This next part is not easy. It's not difficult, it's just fundamentally hard for me to do this, because what I'm about to do is I'm going to cut this, 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 and this off of the body. I'm going to come in with a cutoff wheel and cut all of those because they need to be removed in order to put the tube fenders on. It's not hard, it's just really kind of hard for me to take a brand new Jeep that really doesn't have any miles on it and cut these body parts off. And you're basically saying that the stock fenders will not go on anymore. You're now required to have a tube fender unless you want to come back in and try to weld these things back in. I'm going to be careful and cut these, and then I'm going to come back through and grind them smooth and paint them so that they don't rust down the road. Old fenders off. I put a little bit of paint there where I cut that bracket off. Now we're going to bolt the new fender on. This fender has kind of a flange that runs around the edge and then up there to the front. And this basically lines up with these holes along the body. So, but there are 2 holes you have to drill. And in order to get those just right, you want to kind of bolt this up there gently and sort of mock everything up. So, and these top bolt holes are kind of difficult because you kind of got to just barely get your finger up behind there. Like this one's almost impossible. So some of them you're going to have to like hold the nut up in there with some pliers or something. But to start, I'm going to just bolt on like these back 2 and then line up for, there's a hole you have to drill right here and another hole you have to drill down in this back corner. The hardware that comes with this is all stainless, and all the nuts that come with it are nylox. So I just grabbed some standard 5/16 nuts for the mock-up stage so that it's easier to take it on and off. All right, this is gonna live right about there. So we'll stick this bolt in here and put a nut on the back side. Oh boy, oh boy. Won't fall. That front is just fine. So this bottom hole right here is the one that you need to mark to drill. And then also the front hole in the bottom back corner. I have kind of a pointy pick and I line this up. There's a hole right there and that hole is good. And I come in here and mark this guy. This front hole needs a nutsert, which is like a little rivet. It goes into the hole, and then as you tighten it up, it expands and locks into there. I've tried different ways to install these with like a bolt and a washer and a nut and all these kind of homebrew things. Just go to Harbor Freight and buy one of these. This is a nutsert tool. It comes with different sizes. It works better, it works fine. If you're not doing production, then you'll probably never break this thing. And you just slide it in the hole there, get it lined up, and then squeeze these two arms. And what that does is, in effect, pull the end of the nutsert towards the front, squishing the body out and locking it into the metal. Now you have a threaded hole in the body here. So when we put our fender up on here, we're going to put a bolt in there, another bolt with a nut there, bolt and nut, and work our way all the way around. The flange on the tube fender is like 1/8 inch. And then the fender, the body, what you're bolting it to, is really thin sheet metal. So, and all the hardware is stainless. Little stainless bolts, little stainless flat washers, little stainless nylocks. And I think you should put the flat washer on the inside up against the sheet metal, not on the outside against the, well, honestly, if it was me, I would have a flat washer on both sides. But it only came with enough to do one on each bolt. And I feel like the bolt head doesn't really need a flat washer under it because it's bolting up against heavy plate. 1/8 inch, not that heavy, but. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the nut with a pair of vice grips and then taping the flat washer to it. And I have to do it with tape and vice grips because it's stainless, so it's not magnetic, so you can't hold it with a magnet up in there. And then I'm trying to slide this up into a little slot behind the fender. And in some places you can actually get like 1 finger width in there. Other places it's so tight that you can't even do that. So that's your trick for getting it all in there. Now I will tell you that this setup is supposed to reuse the plastic inner fender liner, and I trimmed the fender liner for the other side, and I didn't really like how it looks. Like it doesn't really line up very well, and it has like gaps around it. So I looked on Fabtech's website, and they actually offer like an aluminum inner fender panel that bolts in here. So I think we're gonna try and request that and not use the plastic fender liner, so that it actually is clean looking and protects your, it's not going to be completely sealed, but it will protect your engine bay from maybe some mud getting flown up in there or whatever. But that fender liner comes with these nice little flag nuts that you can stick up in here, and at least that's what it looks like on the instructions. There's a flag nut, so you don't have to do all of this. So I'm not really sure why they went with the nut and flat washer instead of like a flange nut, because a flange nut has kind of like a larger base. Maybe you can't get a stainless flange nut nylock. I would think you can get anything, but that's my little review on the fastener situation. So what I'm trying to do here is get these lined up and started. And you have to put the tape on but not cover the hole, otherwise you won't get the bolt in there. There we go. Don't tighten any of them because everything needs to be able to shift around just a little bit to get it all tight. Oh, this very back one, that also, the bottom two here and the front two here are Allen bolts, Allen head bolts, and the back one uses a flag nut that came in the kit because it's really kind of not easy to reach back down in there. So, and this front one, if the nut falls off of the bolt and it falls down into the body here, you kind of have to pry this little plastic plug out of the way to get to the nut because you can't reach down in there with a magnet because, again, stainless. I don't know why, but stainless fasteners seem to be more prone to galling than just normal steel fasteners. So I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, especially like in this corner where I have a nutsert, which is steel, and then I have a stainless fastener, and the hole is a little bit wonky, and now I need to try and get it to just start and not get cross-threaded. And try to do all of that in a little tiny hole. That's going to be the one that's like the most prominent because it sits out here in the front of the Jeep. You may notice that there's no light right here the way there is in the factory fender. But the tube fenders come with these lights. It is the marking light and a turn signal. And what I really appreciate about this is that at the end of the wiring harness, there's a plug that plugs right into the factory wiring harness on the body. So you'll need to disassemble it slightly. Take this little harness apart. And then this is the marker light. You'll install that last. What you want to do is this harness feeds through this hole in the fender, and then you're going to get a little tiny nut and bolt, and that will bolt that into place. And then the marker light will go right here. So, and then you'll just button up the wiring and then plug it into the factory harness. I'm going to wrap up the front fender install by putting the inner fender liner in. I trimmed it with just a razor knife. I don't think this looks as good as the Fabtech liners that you can order. So I'm going to order those and get them coming. But for now, this will just, I'll put a couple tech screws in to hold this in place, and that will be okay until the other one shows up. With the front tube fender on, we're going to move on to the rear. This section right here is what we will be removing to start. There are 3 little 8mm screws right inside here. Back those out. And like the front, there's a fender liner and then also the exterior fender itself. However, this one, you need to remove these little rivets that run along the perimeter so that you can take them apart, because we're going to use part of the fender liner with the new tube bumper. I've found that if you get just a straight punch and just press straight into them and then pull back, pulls these sort of plastic rivets right out. Sometimes they stick, but for the most part, you can go through and it just releases this sort of rivet and then also pulls it open. Sometimes it pulls it right out onto the end of the pick. If it doesn't come out completely, then you're going to grab your body tool, get underneath there and pull it out. And you'll also pull all of these plastic Christmas tree clips like in the front. And once again, sometimes they break when you try to remove them. So that should have the fender liner ready to peel right out. I think once again we're going to be trimming this to fit underneath the tube bumper or tube fenders. So let's just set this off to the side. Now, once again, there are these white plastic clips that are up inside here holding the fender on. And I messed around on the other side and I figured out that if you just get a pair of cutters or side cutters, dikes, whatever you call them, and come in and just cut the back side of these clips, it seems to release them easier than trying to pry them apart. There are, however, I think two that are not really easy to get to the back of. They're like right about here and here. But I think we are now at the stage where if we start prying at this, it might just come apart. There you go. Fender removed. Go back in with your body tool and clean all these clips off, because some of these holes will be used to mount the tube fenders. Look at that. I kind of like the look of the sheet metal on the inside of the wheel well. So you could probably, another option would be to come in and spray paint all of this black. So when you have the tube fender and black wheel well, but other people like to hide all the fuel filler and all the plugs and hoses and everything. All right, let's go to step 2. The fender's going to use brackets like this if you want to reuse the inner fender liner. And these will go behind the outer fender, and the bolt that holds the fender on will go through this big hole at the top. On the bottom, there's a little hole, and that will be where you'll run a Tech screw up through the fender liner into these little tabs. So we're going to add those to, I believe it's these top 7 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's mock this guy up here. It's going to sit right there. Put 2. Oh, come on. Put 2 bolts in. Put our tab on the back side. We will add a washer and a nylock on the back. And then we'll do the same up here. The The bolts at either end are Allen head, but then the other ones are all hex bolts. Here you can see the brackets that hang down, and then here is where the inner fender well bolts up. Then we'll trim it and screw it into those little brackets. And hopefully this rear end will be all buttoned up. Well, I put the inner fender wells in and they just really don't fit right at all. I don't know if they've changed since Fabtech made these, or if they just kind of, like, I cut them and I put them in here and they just don't reach. You have to kind of like bend them and they'd look all wonky. So I'm deciding, taking executive privilege here and getting rid of the inner fender wells. If you win this and you want to put fender wells back in there, you're more than welcome to do that. I don't know if Fabtech makes inner fender liners for the rear of the Gladiator the way they do on the front. If they do, we will track those down. I'm going to put these little fasteners back in here, and we're going to put this thing on the ground and put some tires on it. Well, what do you think? We have tube fenders installed on the Give-A-Way Gladiator. I'm going to start off by saying, I think aesthetically, I liked the factory fenders more. But that being said, there is way more room between the tire and the fender on both the front and the rear than there was before. To the point where the 37s, you could almost go up to 38, 39, maybe a 40. I don't know that I would really want to abuse these stock axles with 40-inch tires, but there's definitely a lot more clearance. So performance-wise, the tube fenders definitely give it an advantage. The other thing is I didn't put the fender liner in on the rear, and I did on the front. Might be hard to see, but I kind of really prefer the black behind the tire versus the red. So I think I would go through and paint that either with undercoating or paint it if there's no aftermarket fender liners available. But overall, I think it turned out pretty good. And it's one more thing off the list on the Give-A-Way Gladiator. Don't forget to go and sign up to buy a raffle ticket. Go to Cal 4 Wheel's website. You order the ticket, they send it to you, you fill it out, you mail it back in with your payment, and then you get your name in the drawing so that one of you can win this Jeep. That's it for this Dirt Daily. We'll see you guys next time.